A Rolls-Royce is more luxurious. A Lamborghini gets more attention. A Ferrari is faster. A Bentley feels more elegant. So why do some of the richest people on Earth keep choosing a vehicle that still looks like a giant metal box? Think about that. In a world obsessed with futuristic technology, sleek designs, and cutting-edge innovation, one SUV continues dominating the driveways of billionaires, celebrities, athletes, and business moguls. The Mercedes G-Wagon, a vehicle so powerful as a status symbol that people willingly spend over $200,000 just to own one. In some countries, buyers wait months. In others, they pay massive premiums above the sticker price. And despite dozens of luxury SUVs entering the market, the G-Wagon continues doing something almost impossible. It refuses to become irrelevant. But here is what makes this story fascinating. The G-Wagon was never supposed to be a luxury vehicle. It was not designed for celebrities, it was not created for millionaires, and it certainly was not built to become one of the most recognizable status symbols on the planet. In fact, the original purpose of the G-Wagon had absolutely nothing to do with wealth, luxury, or prestige. Its creators had a completely different mission, and if they could see what the vehicle has become today, they probably would not believe it. Because the G-Wagon's rise isn't really a story about automobiles. It is a story about power, status, human psychology, and one of the greatest branding transformations in modern history. The truth is, people do not buy G-Wagons because they need them. Most owners will never use even a fraction of its off-road capabilities. Most will never take it into deserts, climb mountains, or cross dangerous terrain. Yet, they buy it anyway. Why? Because the G-Wagon sells something far more valuable than transportation. It sells identity, and identity is one of the most powerful forces in consumer psychology. Every luxury purchase tells a story. A Rolex tells one story, a private jet tells another, and a Rolls-Royce tells a different story entirely. But the G-Wagon? The G-Wagon tells a story unlike anything else on the road. It does not just say you are wealthy. Lots of vehicles can do that. It says you are powerful, confident, and untouchable. The kind of person who does not follow trends, but creates them. And that message became incredibly valuable in a world where status is everything. Today, the G-Wagon occupies a unique position. It is not simply a luxury SUV, it is a cultural icon, a social signal, and a moving symbol of success. The strange thing is that none of this was planned. To understand how the G-Wagon became king, we have to travel back decades before social media existed, back before influencers, and back before luxury SUVs became fashionable, to a time when the world looked very different. The story begins in the 1970s. At the time, Mercedes-Benz was already respected around the world for building luxurious, elegant, and sophisticated vehicles. But there was one category where Mercedes saw an opportunity: extreme utility. The goal was not glamour or prestige, the goal was survival. Engineers wanted to create a machine capable of handling some of the harshest environments imaginable, a vehicle that could continue moving when ordinary vehicles failed, built for reliability above everything else. The result looked nothing like modern luxury. It was boxy, rugged, simple, and functional. Every design decision prioritized capability. Nothing existed for style or attention. Everything existed for purpose, and that purpose became the foundation of the vehicle's future success, because authenticity cannot be manufactured. Most luxury products begin with an image, but the G-Wagon began with substance, and substance creates credibility. People trust products that earn their reputation. The G-Wagon earned its reputation the hard way, through durability, reliability, and performance. Long before celebrities discovered it, long before Instagram existed, and long before it became fashionable, the vehicle was already building something extremely valuable: trust. Years passed. The automotive industry evolved, and manufacturers redesigned their vehicles repeatedly. Trends came and went, shapes changed, styles changed, and entire categories appeared and disappeared. But something unusual happened. The G-Wagon remained remarkably consistent. Its identity stayed intact, its its shape remained recognizable, and its personality never changed. At first, that seemed like a disadvantage. Competitors looked more modern, more futuristic, and more advanced, but eventually, consistency became one of its greatest strengths. Because while competitors constantly reinvented themselves, the G-Wagon became timeless, and timeless products operate differently. They do not chase attention, attention finds them. Think about brands like Rolex, where the basic formula remains familiar, yet demand remains extraordinary. The same thing happened with the G-Wagon. Its boxy design stopped looking old. Instead, it started looking iconic. People could recognize it instantly, even from a distance, even in traffic, or even in a photograph. That recognition became incredibly valuable, because visibility creates status, and status creates desire. Then came the moment that changed everything. Celebrities discovered it. At first, ownership was relatively rare. A few actors, a few athletes, and a few wealthy entrepreneurs. Then more followed, and then even more. Soon, the vehicle was appearing everywhere. Hollywood, Beverly Hills, Dubai, Monaco, London, and Miami. The G-Wagon was not simply a vehicle anymore. It was becoming a symbol. And symbols are powerful because they communicate information instantly. People see a G-Wagon and immediately make assumptions of success, wealth, confidence, and power. Whether those assumptions are accurate does not matter. What matters is that they exist. And once a product becomes associated with those ideas, demand can explode. That is exactly what happened. The G-Wagon stopped competing as an SUV. Instead, it began competing as a luxury icon, a completely different game. In that game, specifications matter less and emotion matters more. Performance matters less and identity matters more. Technology matters less and perception matters more. The G-Wagon mastered perception. It became the vehicle people wanted others to see them driving. And that transformed everything. Because from that moment forward, Mercedes was not selling transportation. They were selling status. And status is one of the most profitable products in the world. But celebrity influence was only the beginning, because the real reason rich people became obsessed with the G-Wagon had nothing to do with Hollywood, nothing to do with marketing, and nothing to do with luxury. The real reason was hidden deep inside human psychology itself. And once Mercedes discovered that secret, the G-Wagon's rise became unstoppable. The moment the G-Wagon became a status symbol, something interesting happened. People stopped buying it for what it could do and started buying it for what it represented. That shift changed everything, because status is one of the most powerful forces in human behavior. Most people do not like admitting it, but nearly every luxury purchase is influenced by status. The watch on your wrist, the house you buy, the clothes you wear, and the car you drive. Each one tells a story and sends a signal, and the G-Wagon sends one of the strongest signals in the automotive world. But to understand why rich people became obsessed with it, we need to understand how wealthy individuals think differently about products. Most people shop based on value, but wealthy people often shop based on identity. A normal buyer asks, "What does this vehicle do?" While a luxury buyer asks, "What does this vehicle say about me?" That difference changes everything, because once someone reaches a certain level of financial success, transportation becomes less important, while image, recognition, and status become far more vital. That is exactly where the G-Wagon thrives. It does not quietly blend into traffic. It dominates it. The vehicle looks expensive, powerful, and important. Most importantly, everyone knows exactly what it is. Recognition matters a lot. A Bentley may be more luxurious. A Range Rover may offer a smoother ride, and a Lamborghini Urus may be faster, but none of them create the same instant recognition. You do not need to know anything about cars to recognize a G-Wagon. One glance is enough. That level of brand power is extremely rare, and wealthy buyers love products with strong brand power because strong brands become social shortcuts. The moment people see them, assumptions are made, and the G-Wagon benefits from that more than almost any SUV on Earth. Then came one of the most important moments in its modern history, the celebrity explosion. Hollywood embraced the G-Wagon. Professional athletes embraced it. Musicians embraced it, and influencers embraced it. Suddenly, the vehicle seemed to be everywhere. At first glance, this may not seem important, but celebrity ownership changes consumer psychology. When successful people consistently choose the same product, the product becomes associated with success itself. Over time, ownership becomes aspirational. People stop asking, "Is this a good vehicle?" and start asking, "What do successful people know that I don't?" The G-Wagon benefited enormously from this effect. Perhaps no celebrity influenced its image more than Arnold Schwarzenegger. Long before social media influencers existed, Arnold was driving oversized, customized G-Wagons and bringing attention to the vehicle in markets where many people barely knew it existed. Arnold represented strength, success, power, and confidence, the exact same traits people eventually associated with the G-Wagon itself. That connection was not accidental. Humans constantly associate products with people, and when powerful people use powerful products, both become stronger. Soon, athletes followed, then musicians, then entrepreneurs, and then entire luxury communities. Before long, the G-Wagon was not simply popular, it became desirable. And there is a huge difference between those two things. Popular products can disappear, but desirable products create waiting lists. The G-Wagon created waiting lists. Demand started growing faster than supply, and when demand exceeds supply, something fascinating happens. Scarcity enters the picture. Scarcity is one of the most powerful psychological triggers in existence. People naturally want things that are difficult to obtain. Luxury brands understand this. Ferrari understands it, Rolex understands it, Hermes understands it, and Mercedes learned how to use it with the G-Wagon. Limited production, special editions, performance models, and exclusive trims all increase desirability. Because luxury isn't about accessibility, luxury is about exclusivity. The harder something is to obtain, the more valuable it feels. And the G-Wagon became increasingly difficult to obtain, transforming it from a luxury vehicle into a status weapon. Then came social media, and social media changed everything. Before Instagram, people showed off luxury products to small groups. After Instagram, they could show them to millions. Suddenly, visual impact became incredibly important. Products needed to be recognizable, they needed to stand out, and they needed to make an impression within seconds. The G-Wagon was perfectly designed for that world. Its shape was unforgettable, its presence was undeniable, and its image was instantly recognizable. One photo was enough, one video clip was enough, and one glimpse was enough. People knew exactly what they were looking at. That made the G-Wagon social media gold, where every celebrity photo created free advertising, every athlete post created more demand, and every influencer video strengthened the vehicle's image. Soon, the G-Wagon was not simply driving through cities, it was dominating digital culture itself. But nowhere was this phenomenon more visible than Dubai. If Beverly Hills helped make the G-Wagon famous, Dubai helped make it legendary, because Dubai became the perfect environment for the vehicle. Extreme wealth, luxury culture, status-conscious buyers, and a city built around visibility and success. The G-Wagon fit perfectly. Drive through luxury districts in Dubai, and you will find G-Wagons everywhere. Customized versions, Brabus versions, AMG monsters, and limited editions worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Every single one reinforces the same message of success. The G-Wagon became part of the city's visual identity, a symbol of achievement, power, and luxury. That influence eventually spread around the world from Miami to Los Angeles, London to Monaco, and New York to Dubai. The same pattern repeated itself. Successful people kept choosing the same vehicle, and every new owner strengthened the brand. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the G-Wagon's success is who buys it. Unlike many luxury vehicles, its audience is incredibly diverse. Men love it, women love it, athletes love it, business owners love it, entertainers love it, and influencers love it. The vehicle somehow appeals to completely different lifestyles. That is rare, extremely rare. Most luxury vehicles attract specific demographics, but the G-Wagon attracts nearly everyone who values status. That broad appeal made it even stronger because every new customer group expanded its influence. The vehicle was not becoming less relevant, it was becoming more relevant. And while competitors continued chasing new trends, the G-Wagon kept doing something remarkable. It stayed the G-Wagon. The shape remained familiar, the identity remained powerful, and the image remained iconic. That consistency built trust, and trust built loyalty. Soon, the vehicle developed one of the most loyal customer bases in the automotive world. People were not simply buying G-Wagons, they were becoming fans of them. And loyal fans are far more valuable than ordinary customers, because fans return again and again and again. Yet, despite all this success, a massive challenge was approaching. A challenge that threatened every luxury brand on Earth. The future was changing. Electric vehicles were rising, technology was evolving, and consumer expectations were shifting. For the first time in decades, the G-Wagon faced a question nobody could ignore. Could a vehicle built on tradition survive a future built on change? What happened next would determine whether the king could keep his crown. For decades, the G-Wagon had one enemy: time. Every legendary product eventually faces the same challenge. The world changes, technology evolves, consumer preferences shift, and products that once felt untouchable suddenly become outdated. The automotive industry is filled with examples of vehicles that once dominated headlines and that people thought would last forever, only for them to eventually disappear. So the obvious question became, would the G-Wagon suffer the same fate? Many people believed it would. After all, the world was entering a completely new era. Electric vehicles were exploding in popularity, artificial intelligence was transforming transportation, and luxury buyers expected more technology than ever before. Everything seemed to be moving toward the future fast. On paper, the G-Wagon looked like the opposite of the future. Its design came from another era, its shape ignored modern trends, and its philosophy felt old school. Many experts predicted the same outcome. The G-Wagon would eventually become irrelevant, and that is where they made a critical mistake, because they misunderstood what people were actually buying. They assumed people bought the G-Wagon because of the vehicle itself, but that is not what made it powerful. People bought the G-Wagon because of what it represented, and representation survives much longer than technology. Think about luxury watches. Your smartphone tells time more accurately than a Rolex, yet Rolex remains one of the most desirable brands in the world. Why? Because people are not buying the function, they are buying the symbol. The exact same thing happened with the G-Wagon. People were not simply buying transportation, they were buying status, and status never goes out of fashion. That realization changed Mercedes' strategy completely. Instead of reinventing the G-Wagon, they evolved it carefully, slowly, and strategically. Every new generation became more luxurious, more comfortable, and more technologically advanced, yet it still looked like a G-Wagon. That consistency was brilliant because Mercedes understood something many competitors didn't. Luxury customers hate losing identity. If the G-Wagon suddenly looked like every other SUV, it would lose the very thing that made it special: its uniqueness, its instantly recognizable silhouette, and its unmistakable personality. Mercedes protected those assets at all costs, and the results speak for themselves. The vehicle remained relevant year after year, decade after decade, even as competitors launched new challengers. Range Rover evolved, BMW evolved, Cadillac evolved, and brands like Lamborghini, Bentley, and Rolls-Royce all entered the SUV market. And yet, somehow, the G-Wagon remained standing. Not just standing, but thriving. That raises an important question. Why didn't these competitors take the crown? After all, many offered more luxury, more comfort, more technology, and in some cases, even better performance. The answer comes back to one word: identity. You can copy features, technology, and horsepower, but you cannot copy history. You cannot copy culture, and you cannot copy decades of emotional connection. The G-Wagon built those things over generations. Every celebrity owner, athlete, entrepreneur, and billionaire strengthened the myth. until eventually the vehicle became larger than the automotive industry itself. It became a cultural icon. Icons do not compete the same way ordinary products do. They operate on another level. People do not compare them logically, they connect with them emotionally. That is exactly why many buyers choose a G-Wagon, even when alternatives might make more practical sense. Because luxury isn't driven by practicality, luxury is driven by desire. And desire follows emotion, not logic. Then came the biggest challenge of all, electrification, the future of the automotive industry. For most vehicles, the transition seems straightforward. Replace the engine, install batteries, add technology, and move forward. For the G-Wagon, it was not that simple, because Mercedes was not just protecting a vehicle, they were protecting a legend. The challenge was not just creating an electric G-Wagon, the challenge was preserving its soul. Because if buyers stopped feeling what they felt when they saw a G-Wagon, everything could collapse. Years of brand equity, status, and emotional value gone. Mercedes knew the risk. That is why the company approached the future carefully, centering every decision around one goal: keep the identity alive. Because the identity was always the real product, not the engine, the specifications, or even the luxury. It was the identity, the symbol, and the story. And stories are incredibly powerful, especially among wealthy consumers. Successful people do not just buy products, they buy narratives. The G-Wagon tells a narrative of confidence, strength, power, and achievement. It says, I don't need to follow trends, I don't need approval, and I've already arrived. That message resonates deeply with successful individuals, which is exactly why celebrities, athletes, and entrepreneurs continue buying them, keeping demand incredibly strong. The vehicle has become something much bigger than transportation. It has become proof of success, status, and achievement. And in a world obsessed with visible success, that proof carries enormous value. Today, a teenager in Los Angeles, a businessman in Dubai, an entrepreneur in London, and a tourist in Miami all recognize a G-Wagon. The vehicle has achieved global recognition, which is extraordinarily difficult. Most products and brands never reach that level, but the G-Wagon did, and that is why it continues winning. Not because it is perfect, the fastest, or the most luxurious, but because perfection isn't what creates icons. Identity creates icons, meaning creates icons, and emotion creates icons. The G-Wagon mastered all three, which brings us back to the original question. Why is the G-Wagon still king? Because every competitor focused on building a better SUV, while Mercedes built something entirely different, a symbol. And symbols are incredibly difficult to replace. The G-Wagon survived, changing trends, technologies, generations, and expectations, yet its core message never changed: power, confidence, and success. That is why billionaires keep buying it, celebrities keep driving it, athletes keep showing it off, and demand remains stronger than ever. The throne is still occupied, the crown is still protected, and despite decades of competition, countless challengers, and a rapidly changing world, one truth remains impossible to ignore. The G-Wagon isn't simply a luxury SUV, it isn't simply a Mercedes, and it isn't simply a vehicle. It is one of the most powerful status symbols ever created. And until another brand learns how to build that kind of emotional connection, the outcome will remain exactly the same. The king will stay king.